Kailinda, thank you so much for being with us on CNN Business Arabic. First, I'd like to start by asking you, so in recent days and weeks, we saw airports getting attacked by hacks across Europe. So they showed how one hack can disrupt entire economies, add AI-driven propaganda, and the old rules don't seem to apply anymore. So when does a cyber attack become serious enough for a military or alliance response?
Yes, of course, we have seen so many attacks lately, and cyberspace has become one of the operational domains for NATO, for instance. And cyber attacks can be considered as attacks under Article 5, for which collective defense applies. It depends on the scale and the intensity of the attack. So it's not about the device, it's about the impact of the device that is produced. What happens first is that a country that is under cyber attack informs NATO and asks for consultations under Article 4. Those can be emergency consultations if need be. And then the allies talk about the attack. The scope of the attack is assessed, and then there is response. NATO has a cyber rapid response teams that are ready to be deployed within 24 hours to go and assist countries who are under attack. And should attack become a major one, that it resembles an actual military attack, then the responses can be varied. So the response can be, of course, political, diplomatic, by condemnation, sanctions, isolation, etc. They're certainly technical in assisting the country or the countries involved. And if the consequences are so great that the North Atlantic Council decides that indeed a response under Article 5 of collective defense is needed, then even a military response can be an appropriate response to a cyber attack, and that's for NATO to decide. So there is a whole range of responses at NATO's never define what a response would be to any certain attack, but it is decided on a case-by-case basis.
When you talk about sanctioning these countries, assuming that the actors in play are non-state actors, but they're hosted by certain countries who have shown leniency towards these non-state actors, what can, for example, NATO or the Interpol do?
Absolutely, that requires collective response as well, because if a state harbors any criminals, the state is responsible for its territory, because sovereignty carries with it not just rights, but responsibilities as well. Responsibility carries with that sovereignty, and it's responsibility of every country to ensure that there are no attacks, cyber terrorists or any other attacks happening from their territory, so they have to deal with them. However, if the situation is not dealt with, then again, collective response is in order from Interpol to NATO, and the EU and NATO are defining cyber attacks, including ransomware, which has now become quite frequent in the world, one of the most serious and one of the most often performed cyber attacks and cyber crimes, then that is part of collective defense.
In recent years, we've seen deep fakes growing. How do you think democracies can protect elections? And are Europe's new AI rules strong enough?
That is a really good question, because democracies themselves, because of the structure, allow for a lot of things that can backfire and that it can become danger to a democratic system. And so the rights and the development of technologies, the use of technologies, the media, the freedom of the media, it can be used by criminals to perform any kind of attacks. And with deep fakes and with disinformation, we have seen the erosion in the trust. The trust is really the most important, but also the most vulnerable of all assets the governments have, because democratic systems rely on the trust of people towards their governments. In my personal experience, even before AI, I have seen so many fake news, fake photos of me displayed out there, which are always aimed at your reputation, in my case, especially as a woman. And with deepfake, anything is possible today. So the European Union has passed a lot of rules. I welcome that very much because the EU has so far been the biggest regulator of artificial intelligence, which has huge opportunities but also huge challenges, and we need to regulate it quickly. However, regulation and diplomacy, it's very difficult to keep track with technological development. So it's not about the rules, but the implementation of the rules, but also building systems of response, engaging scientists and the private sector and all that, and also building resilience so that citizens themselves can recognize when something is a deep fake and when we're dealing with disinformation that is aimed at distorting somebody's views or even interfering with elections and other democratic processes in our countries.
Speaking about democracy, so we've seen a split on how countries deal with cybersecurity. On one hand, you have, for example, the US and Europe push for transparency and cooperation, while other countries such as China and Russia rely on strict state control. Do you think the Middle East, specifically the GCC, can play a bridging role between these two, let's call them blocs?
Absolutely, I do, because it's not just that Saudi Arabia, the GCF, and the whole Gulf space connects the two regions geographically. I would say as sort of a neutral territory, it's a bridge, not a battlefield of these ideas and of the systems. And as the Gulf has really become a global hub of diplomacy, diplomatic efforts to stop major wars, I see the Gulf becoming also as the center of cyber diplomacy, global cyber diplomacy.
Kolind, I cannot but ask you, given the ongoing standoff between NATO and Russia, do you think there's still room for real diplomacy, or have the channels completely broken down?
Yes, we have seen a lot of incidents, a lot of provocation, a lot of testing of our systems, and it's becoming a lot harder. Diplomacy has become harder, but it doesn't mean that it should disappear. There are fewer opportunities for engagement. However, history shows that even in the most difficult of times, such as the Cold War, we were able to negotiate arms treaties, including nuclear armaments treaties. So hopefully there will be enough, not just pathways, but also willingness to de-escalate and to prevent from future incidents happening.
Thank you so much, Kolind, for being with us on CNN Business Arabic.
Thank you so much, and a great day to you too.